James Bond, aided by Q's gadget, covert agents with mini radios, assassins with pocket-sized firearms, explosives disguised as everyday objects, surveillance by hidden microphones and phone taps, spies dropped in occupied lands by parachute or submarine carrying false identity papers and elaborate disguises. That's what many of us think of a spycraft. World War II was the birth of all of that, and the British Special Operations Executive was one of the forerunners in modern spycraft. Hello, darlings. I'm Astrid Deinhard. This is World War II in real-time sub-series Spies and Ties. The British Special Operations Executive, SOE for short, was created on July 22nd, 1940. 1 month after France had capitulated to Nazi Germany, and it was clear that this war, again, was not going to be over at Christmas, at least not the coming one. It is created by joining together 3 intelligence organizations within the Foreign Office. MI6 and War Department talks about creating a joint secret organization ready to deploy combatants and agents behind enemy lines had been in discussion since before the war. With the British Commonwealth standing pretty much alone against Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, these plans become urgent. And on July 16th, Hugh Dalton, Minister of Economic Warfare, here he is given the political responsibility and told by Prime Minister Winston Churchill to go set Europe ablaze. A veteran of the Irish War of Independence, he models his new creation on his former enemy, the Irish Republican Army. A flattened organization where the sections are so secret they often don't know of each other's existence, but are tightly controlled under central leadership. In fact, some sections of the SOE are so very secret that they don't even exist. Many of the 9,000 agents that SOE will deploy during the war will forever think they work for either the Joint Technical Board or the Inter-Service Research Bureau or some branch of Air Ministry, Admiralty or War Office, none of which are real things. It's not a thing, Donna. Dalton does a formidable job to facilitate the creation of the SOE, but by 1942, he is no longer in charge. You see, Dalton can't keep his hands off the spy equipment and starts listening to his political opponent's phone conversation using the SOE phone tapping setups. But he must have missed Article 1 in the Spy's Handbook, Don't Get Caught. Anyway, let's forget the political leaders and look to the man who is really running the SOE from day one, even if he only becomes its formal director in 1943. Brigadier Colin McGavin Gubbins. Here he is. A great war veteran, he fought guerrilla warfare during the British expedition to the Russian Civil War in 1919 and during the Irish War of Independence. Then he studied to become an officer, graduated and went to work in British intelligence. In 1938, he is in Sudetenland as Germany annexes parts of Czechoslovakia to coordinate possible Czech resistance. In early 1939, he authors the British Forces instruction manuals on how to drop clandestine combatants into a potentially occupied Europe. In September 1939, he joins Carton de Villiers. Do you remember him? The guy that lost half of his body, I'm exaggerating, an arm, most of his other hand and an eye in World War I and is still fighting in this war and goes to Warsaw to organize resistance as Germany is invading. That doesn't work so well. But McVeen Gubbins gets to know a lot of Polish soldiers on top of the Russian and Czech ones he already knows. That will be very important for the SOE. You see, if you're going to drop people into a foreign country, a country under enemy occupation, they better blend in. Changing clothes to disguise yourself is easy enough. Actually, in the 1940s, that isn't as easy as you might think. Fashion is still local, even down to the use of different fabrics, tailoring, and brands. Now, before the war, spies were usually individual operatives with detailed knowledge of these things and could take care of it themselves, but the SOE plans to require them to slip massive amounts of agents into enemy territory. Also, one change of clothes won't do it. Each of them needs a wardrobe. There is a story, I don't know if it's true. A female agent is dropped into France. Her mission requires her to be a well-to-do French lady of the upper classes. So she's sent in with a big suitcase full of expensive designer clothes. Only she and the suitcase get separated during the parachute jump. She gets to a cafe to work out what to do next when suddenly a local woman walks into the cafe with her lost suitcase and starts offering all of the fine SOE clothes for sale. Can you imagine her face? It gets worse. When the Gestapo arrive and arrest the seller for black market activities, can you imagine how hot it got in her silk outfit watching that? So, the SOE have to make a lot of clothes. At first, they use stuff donated by refugees, but that supply is limited. So, clothing is manufactured by refugees who are familiar with styles and fabrics. Labels are copied from original clothing, British brand names are drilled from zippers and buttons. Faked receipts of European tailors or steam cleaners are even put in the pockets to make them look genuine upon close inspection. If clothes look too new, they are artificially aged. So, now you're all set with a disguise. But you need much more than that. You have to speak the language, know the customs, understand the culture, on top of being espionage and guerrilla warfare material, of course. Be fearless and have ice-cold nerves. Not too easy to find, and a secret operation won't be very secret if they start advertising for agents in the newspaper, right? That's when McVeen Gubbins' network of foreign connection comes in. He now proceeds to recruit a virtual army for espionage and sabotage, staffed with migrants, refugees, adventurers, and foreign combatants, now in exile in Great Britain. But even then, you will constantly be on your toes. Never say too much. Or, as the SOE saying goes, he who has a secret to keep should not only keep it, but keep it secret. That he has it to keep. One slip up and bam, you're caught, tortured and dead. To protect yourself from too much scrutiny, you need a new and altered identity.
Now, you could make up a completely new person, but that has its own challenges. Beyond possibly requiring plastic surgery or a sex change. And even if you would be ready for that, this is the 1940s, baby. And reality. Not an episode of Mission Impossible.
Amir, get out of my chair. Okay, since you can't change who you actually are, and the SOE frowns on elaborate disguises as they can easily fail, they want an agent to adopt an identity close to their own real self, or even stay themselves. That's also why very, very many of the SOE agents are, in fact, women. It turns out that in the 1940s, male-dominated world, they attract a lot less attention. And if they do, they are supposed to. Man or woman, in many cases, what you do need is a fake identity or an improvement on your own identity to fill gaps in your storyline, like the year you just spent in Great Britain becoming an SOE agent. That requires documents. It begins in the summer of 1940, when 3 Polish forgers start making fake papers for other Polish SOE agents training at Brigand's House in Essex. Their work catches the attention of Captain Morton Granger Bizet, a highly specialized printer working for the SOE to extend their forgery capacity. Granger Bizet quickly expands the operation at Brigands into SOE Section 14. They forge all kinds of documents, often using newly printed originals from occupied territory. Agents smuggle out the originals, they forgers copy it, and then it is taken back to occupied lands before the Germans or local authorities discover that it is missing. The record turnaround is for a French rationing card that is borrowed in France in the night, flown out to England, copied at Brigands during the day, and secretly returned to the printers in France the same evening. They also create false documents like tax records, birth certificates that are inserted in national registries to create full background stories. The Germans soon become aware of their work, but failed to stop the operations. By the end of the war, Section 14 will have forged, hold your shorts, 275,000 documents and printed tens of millions worth of counterfeit currency notes and ration cards. Okay, now you have new papers and a new wardrobe. Okay, what's next? Well, before all this even starts, you get training at one of the secret SOE facilities. Here, all agents receive basic combat training and then specialized training for the job they have to do. Everything from just blending in and listening to major sabotage or assassination operations. But then you need stuff, gadgets. So now we get to the real cue, to the actual James Bonds. You see, Ian Fleming borrowed the title Q from the SOE. The gadgets they produced were called Q gadgets. That, in turn, was inspired by the merchant vessels carrying concealed arms that the British operated in World War I, the Q ships, named after their home port, Queenstown, Ireland. Anyway, the real Q is Charles Fraser Smith. Here he is. An upper-middle-class orphan who at school is described as scholastically useless, except for woodwork and science and making things. He spent most of his youth dawdling from one job to the other. Then, on his foster father's advice, he went to Morocco as a missionary to clean up his act. There, he learns of the art of bricolage, the technique of taking stuff, scraps, broken pieces of machines, whatever you can get your hands on, to jimmy-rig or even build modern equipment for transportation, industry, and farming. When he returns to London in 1939, he holds lectures about bricolage, and one of them is attended by 2 recruiting representatives of the War Ministry. And that is how Fraser Smith gets what he calls a funny job. Officially, he is employed by the Ministry of Supplies, Clothing and Textile Department, and not even his secretary knows his real job. His office at the department isn't even where he really works. Sure, that's where he commutes to from Hertfordshire every morning, but soon he leaves the office to go to meetings. That means going to his actual office at MI6 in Minimax House. It's also from here that all the SOE clothes are created, but the most spectacular creations are their gadgets. They range from the obvious, like concealed blades, maps disguised as headscarves or gun silencers, odd things like coins with flip blades to slash tires, or the sneakers making barefoot footprints employed by operatives in Asia to hide their tracks by making them look like tribesmen's tracks. Clever, right? Others are on the cutting edge of 1940s technology, like microfiche photography, miniatures, long-range radio sets, or the portable 1-hour underwater oxygen supply. They create sabotage devices using the fairly new invention of plastic explosives hidden inside things like wine bottles, statuettes, or just dynamite in dead rats. Yep, you heard me, right, dead rats. These rat bombs are strewn onto factory floors producing for the German war effort. Then workers pick them up and throw them in the factory generator or heating oven. The explosion paralyzes the factory. Bam! That leads to a massive dead rat hunt across the German war production facilities, as you can imagine. The SOE are not unique in all these advances, but they are one of the most, perhaps the most advanced operations of the war. The work of the spy factories, pioneered by McVean Gubbins, Granger Bizet, Fraser Smith, and thousands of other secret inventors, forgers, operatives, and agents, will change the world forever. It triggers a new genre of literature, the spy novel, which leads to all the spy and action movies and TV series that we all love. Perhaps more significant, the intelligence services of World War II give birth to a modern spycraft. In the decades after the war, it will be their methods and inventions that lay the foundation for a conflict between the world powers fought mainly through espionage, infiltration, disinformation, and guerrilla warfare. The Cold War.
What do we do now?
We do time goes shorts. No, time goes shorts. Okay, check this out. We do short pieces on a variety of historical things, right? That are genuine quality history that the Time Goes brand is known for, and we put it up right here so all of our friends out there in Time Goes land can see them and can learn even more history because they all love history. That's why they're here.
So do we.
I mentioned Carton de Veer as a truly fascinating character. We did a special on him that you can see here. Here. Join the Time Ghost Army at patreon.com or timeghost.tv and become part of our efforts to unearth and bring out many of the lesser-known aspects of history, like in this video. Subscribe, ring that bell, and I will see you next time, darlings.